Hello. Well, I've been struggling a bit with a particular Pioneer Laserdisc player I have, model DVL-700. Certain functions you can only really get to using a remote control, but it didn't come with a remote control. So I've bought quite a lot of Pioneer remote controls over the years, and none of them have worked. Now, as I understand it, Pioneer can have some different codes for their remote controls. So was it all down to coding trouble? Well, eventually, somebody was very kind and actually sent me an original remote control for that machine. And it still didn't work. So let's investigate what happened, how I've worked around this problem. And here you can see my large selection of Pioneer Laserdisc remote controls. This is the one that was sent to me. And I have all these, and I have to show you this. Look at this monster. It's absolutely humongous. And interestingly, this has a socket at the front, so you can use that as a wired as well as an infrared remote control. My problem was that when this arrived, it didn't work, and it now does. So let me show you a little bit of what I did to fix it. The first thing I did was try an app I have on my phone which lets you see if the LED is flashing. I'll put a link down below. And though actually you don't need an app to do that, because the camera on most mobile phones will see infrared, this particular app kind of filters out the other light and makes it a little bit easier to see. And I could see that the LED was not flashing on here at all. So I took it apart. Well, immediately when I even opened it up, it was obvious that there had been some corrosion inside from leaky batteries. So I had to clean up the contacts, but you know, that's pretty much standard stuff, and I cleaned up the contacts and I was still rewarded with a non-working remote control. So took the screw out, which is still out at the moment, and now we have to try to take it apart. I'll show you what I did. I found this particular one comes apart easier if you start at the top. This is a thing which comes in handy. Spudger. I think it was Big Clive's channel I saw this on first and thought, oh, that would be a useful device. So a bit of poking and prodding about. And the thing is, you're trying to release the clips as you go along without breaking any. If you break the odd one, well, you know, it won't stop it being serviceable. And apart it came. And when I took this apart the first time, I could see that this area was covered in gunge which had leaked through from the batteries. And I cleaned this quite thoroughly. I tried IPA initially, and that didn't get me very far. So isopropyl alcohol. In actual fact, I found the best product for cleaning it up was WD-40. And I'll take a photograph and let you see what that looked like. So here's what that looked like after I'd cleaned it up. And though it's not perfect, it's fine. There was no serious track damage, so we're okay to carry on with that. But still, I had no response. And that's when I had a thought. You'll see here that this component here, this is the Ceramic Resonator, which is a kind of a cheap version of a crystal, provides timing. And the original one that came out of here is this one, and you can see some of the gunge that they'd kind of tied it down with here. And I've known these fail. They can fracture, the legs can break, or they can break internally if they're dropped. Now this particular one is marked B480, which means it's 480 kilohertz resonant frequency. Very often the crystal, the resonator inside a remote control will be 455 kilohertz. This 480 is a little bit less common. So I went on a bit of a rampage through old remote controls looking for a 480 kilohertz resonator. And I'll tell you, I learned something in the process. Let me show you what kind of remote control will never offer up that kind of resonator. These kind of remote controls will never provide a resonator of that kind of frequency. And the reason is that all these remote controls have the ability to learn or transmit codes from different brands. So they're not tied to one frequency. They have to be able to handle lots of different frequencies. So therefore the timing component in these is much higher frequency, may even be an actual crystal, but it's even if it's a ceramic resonator, it's likely to be in the megahertz area. So nothing like this is going to provide us with the ceramic resonator of the sort of frequency we're looking for in this case. So it dawned on me my best target for finding a 480 kilohertz remote control ceramic resonator was another Pioneer remote, and this is the one I borrowed it from. So this is a Laserdisc remote control, but not one that works on this particular machine, and I borrowed this blue ceramic resonator from this board. It was located here. So we need to fix this one, and took this one out, fitted that, and we got somewhere. Actually, the very camera I'm using to record this on might pick up this infrared LED, so I'll just try that. No, it seems that this camera is not going to really show that terribly clearly, but let's use this remote app I was talking about. Can you see that that light is pulsing when I press the button? And I've got quite a high light level on my desk here. If I made it darker, it would probably work a bit better. So we can see that this remote is working. Now, there is a slightly more scientific way to test the remote control. There's these little cheap and nasty testers here, and actually this has got an infrared remote control reader. Let's try that with some random remote control. We'll come back to this one in a moment. Oh, this one I'm using for controlling my lights. So if I switch this thing on and then point this at it, it'll tell me the user code and data code, and the data code will vary depending which button you're pressing, and the user code will vary depending what remote control you're using. Well, that's true of a lot of these remote controls. This target one is different. It has a remote control code sequence which I think is too long for this to read. So if you press a button once and get it to read it once, it'll give you a sensible readout. But if you keep pressing it, it gives you one of several different readouts, depending, I think, when it picks up that which piece of the code segment it picks up. It's not random, though it looks like it initially. But we can see that that remote is working. So what I need to do, several things I need to do. I'm going to have a little look at the code sets that these other Pioneer remote controls give out, and I'm also going to repair this one that I've raided the crystal resonator from, ceramic resonator, and I think I'll change this one as well. So I bought some, little eBay job. They're not expensive. So we've got 4 of these ZTB480E. So I trust that when I fit one of these in this position, that will work. Since the original manufacturer stuck the original ceramic resonator down with a bit of gunge, I should probably do the same. So I'll take this one out and I'll replace it with a brand new one from here, and I'll stick it down. Now, I should say, before I replace this, I wanted to show you a part of my reasoning process in working out that the crystal resonator may have been the cause. I did some voltage measurements. So I've refitted the original ceramic resonator, and what I was looking for is, after I'd cleaned up this area, I was looking for activity on the IC, and there are various pins which give us a voltage. There's 3 volts on this pin. I can see that there is a voltage, a battery voltage on the IC on some of the pins, but the resonator just has sort of voltages stuck to it. Nothing's really changing, and I did find some DC voltage that would change slightly on certain key combination presses, but there was no AC anywhere. And so, with no pulses happening, and I had this on an oscilloscope as well, I was thinking, well, if the IC is still live, then the most likely next cause would be the the ceramic resonator. So, knowing that they are a little bit prone to failure, that was what caused me to decide to swap that out. Now let's fit the new one and confirm that everything works. Now you can see things actually happen when I press the buttons, and you can actually probably measure the frequency on there. Let's try that. 480 kilohertz. 480, yes, 0.48 megahertz. So you can see that is working now. That's very good, that. Okay, so having fitted a new crystal in here, I can now press the button here and you'll see those rolling codes. So that's fully working. Okay, so now we have this remote control which gave up the blue ceramic resonator. Now I have the choice of either fitting one of these brand new ones in here or refitting the original blue one. I think I'll fit the original blue one, since there may be a subtle difference due to that colour. I may have hit a new problem. Let's have a look at this. Most of these buttons produce a output. Let's turn this light off. Most of the buttons produce a definite output, like there. I think you can see that on the phone. But some, like this fast forward button, work only occasionally. That's a bad sign, isn't it? And some don't seem to work at all, like the back. Not working at all. Oh dear. And going down here, there's a button labelled random. That works. But above it is program. That doesn't work. Time doesn't work. Display doesn't work. All the number buttons work, I think. 0, 9 is working, 0 is not. Oh dear. We have a fault to fix. So what could be the problem? If we try to activate one of the problem keys, say number 0, directly on the pad here, if we can find the right one, that's this pad. Let's see if that works. May need a clean. A little bit gungy on the board there. I'll just give that a clean. I've got to be careful. I don't want to use too much IPA. You can lift these conductive traces off. Right, I've just been around with a bit of isopropyl alcohol and cleaned off some of the gunge that was on various traces. Let's try that again. I still had problems here, but I'm going to shorten this part of the video because the repairs process went on for a while. Suffice to say that all the affected keys were connected by one particular conductive track. These tracks, they're not printed circuit board tracks. It's kind of a printed layer of conductive, it's almost like paint, a black conductive carbon layer. and the resistance of that track type is fairly high, but in this particular case it was very high. It was going into thousands of ohms. So I applied some conductive paint over the top of it, and that lowered the resistance a lot, but the fault remained, and it was caused by some gunge on the PCB which I'd missed earlier. And this wasn't gunge as a result of the battery leakage. I think this is as a result of a liquid spill on the remote control in its past. Once that was cleaned up and it was reassembled, the remote control worked flawlessly. Every key was perfect. Here we can see the remote control working properly. The only defect we still have is that the A-B side swapping feature on this machine doesn't always work, but that's not particularly important to me. Okay, let's now look at these other Laserdisc remotes. Now that we've got this one working, and that's got the long complicated code set, let's look with this little device at these others. This is the one I'd borrowed a Ceramic Resonator from, so let's press number 1 and see what code we get. And it's consistently giving us the user code 0857 and the data code 01FE for the number 1 button. Right, let's try this great big monster. Button number 1, 0857 01FE. Same code as this one. Let's try this one. Number 1, 0857 01FE. Same code again. And finally this one, 0857 01FE. So what we've found out is all of these units send out the same code set, and this, which is the target one we're aiming for, sends out the longer code set. Now I have another Pioneer Laserdisc player which I'd like to try, and I'm fairly sure none of these will work on it. That's implying that maybe another code set again. But it also explains now why none of these worked on the DVL-700, because of course that needed this code set. To my delight, all 4 of these simpler remote controls do indeed work on my other machine, which is the Pioneer LD-V4300D industrial model. And it turns out that this monster remote control is virtually identical to the one that was intended for that machine, even down to the option of having this interconnecting cable instead of infrared optical operation. So I'm going to use that remote control with the big industrial machine from now on. One strange feature of this particular setup is that you can't switch off the machine or eject the disc from the remote control, and I'm sure this is because in some industrial applications removing the Laserdisc is not desirable. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned a little bit about remote controls and also about these ceramic resonators. There's just one last thing I wanted to mention about these before we sign off. They don't always look like this, these 2-pin devices. You can get ceramic devices which are 3-pin design like that. So if you see something like that on a board, it's quite likely a ceramic resonator also. Do please remember to like, share and especially subscribe, and I'll do more content on audio and video technology in the near future. Bye for now.